Right, back in business. Sorry, slightly later than I expected. I've lost track of time. See, oil has just opened, and we have opened in just inside of the gap. So there we are from a profile perspective, and there we go from a chart. So we're inside the gap. It's not exactly a thriller positionally or speed wise, but as long as you're above that gap, I think you're looking all good to play that initial idea of it going higher. That would be the way that I think you've got to look at this, at least to start with. The fear, I think, here is that it's just not really doing very much. That's the issue that you've got, basically. From a profile perspective, not quite got to the bottom of value, which comes in around, what, 70.6. I don't think it's a reason to think it won't do it, but it's not exactly setting the world afire at the moment. That's the only issue with it. It's one of these where if you're already in and you played it to the upside, maybe just buying it on that first test of the little gap, I don't think there's a great deal of reason for you to fear this or to think you're wrong, but equally there's not a great deal saying you're right on this one. So there's not too much to be said here. What I'd want to see, I did notice there's a couple of larger sort of 100 odds up above there. I'd look at that as that's going to be the point. If it's going to go, you want to see it whack through them. If it whacks through them, then yeah, I think you're off to the races. If it doesn't, then it just becomes a day that just sits there and does very little. And we don't do anything for a bit. And this is part of what you have to go through. That trade's not going to go away. I think that opportunity to the upside is absolutely still there. It's on until really you fall back into this area and really, oops, my finger's not very good at drawing. Really, like I said, until you come down here, there's not a great deal to make you think that you're necessarily wrong on this. Yeah, I don't think you can do that as a stop. You can't sort of just leave your stop down here, because if it is going to go wrong, by the time you've stopped yourself out down here, there's nothing you can really do to make any of your money back. So I think you have to kind of give it up coming back inside yesterday's range. You see what it does at 36 area. If it's going to bounce, that's the one. If not, then you're falling back into that ugly area of the day. We still got the oil inventories as well. So we'll perhaps, they're at 330. So we'll perhaps get ready for those, see where we are. At the moment, I'd look at oil inventories almost more a chance to get in for a move you're looking for rather than them being the thing to trade. But very, very sticky at the minute. Not too much to be said for it just yet. We'll come back to it though if it does start to move. So I'll keep an eye out for it. Right. Okay, that's what I was going to do. There you go. So a few little bits and pieces that I thought I'd cover on the back of yesterday. The first was that oil move down. I've got the ladders up on this one. I put the info up there. Like I said, that's the only thing that I can see was a reason for this. I'll show you the ladders on it as well, because I thought that was quite a useful thing to see. Right, here we go then. This was the move, and like I said before, I think with any kind of, there we go. With anything like this, one of the best ways, and we did it on some of the other bits and pieces, one of the best things that you want to be looking at is, well, what does anything else do? So I've got S&P and gold. Now, for a move in oil, in this instance, obviously oil starts going towards the downside. If oil's going down, you're looking at that thinking, well, if this is sort of a risk-on type scenario and selling oil, you would expect to see the S&P starting to rally. So that was the first bit of it, and oil skips down the page. You get a little bit of movement, but not a great deal. So it's really hard to just go for it on oil, bearing in mind that, oh, for goodness sake, stupid jigsaw. Bearing in mind that you would have already seen the news. So the news is already out. You've read that, you've seen that. Nothing's really happened to start with. It's now off towards the downside very, very, very quick. It's a really difficult one. Well, it's really difficult now to get in on. It's virtually impossible. And so then you're left really not knowing what to do with it. Is it a risk on? S&P does go up, gold comes off. So you kind of view it like that. It is slightly risk on. but I wouldn't sort of see that as a majorly sort of risk on type movement. So really, really difficult one to trade. Yeah, it's got some flow in it. I think if you're in and you sort of saw that first bit of the move down and you sold it, it does keep you in, and you see it keeps this kind of 20, 30, like just pressuring it all the way down. So it does give you that if you got in on it. But I think it's a really difficult one to sort of see that start to move and go, yeah, this is it. I'm going to sell it for 100 tick drop. I don't really see what was there on it. And you look at the others, where the S&P's done what, 3 handles. Gold's done very, very little. It's done about 20 ticks. There's not much in that to sort of look and think, yeah, that looks good for oil. And the other point being that news came out a minute and a half before it started to move, which again would not indicate to me that it's directly related to the news. It's a really, really late reaction to it.
So when you get the other markets not reacting as well, it's a bit of a warning that to just...
That's always my take on it. Like, it's hard to be confident that, yeah, even if you saw, because, you know, let's face it, the S&P does go up, gold does go down on it. So on that basis, you could sell oil, but they hardly fly. And, you know, like I say, if you went for it, you sold oil on it, you might be at a point where you've got yourself far enough on side that you can kind of go, well, do you know what, I'm in now. Let's see where it goes. It didn't have much pullback in it. Yeah, I think you're probably starting to end up getting out now that it's tried to go down to the low. It's, you know, bounced back to the mid 80s, 90s again. You've got to start thinking that there's not much more in this. Yeah, the S&P is not really continuing. Gold's not continuing.
It's not that news volatility you want to see.
Well, it was initially, but at this point, you're then starting to think, well, I'm struggling for what reason I should still be in this, seeing as nothing else is really going. I'd also be looking, thinking, well, you're getting back inside the low of what was the low of the day, or was previous to this. So that again would be another reason to think, well, there's no reason to justify staying in that trade. So it's probably one of these where you might get a long, long way on side and end up giving up 50 ticks, or you get a long way on side and look at everything else and think nothing else has moved, I'll take it. I think realistically, if I got on that somewhere near the top for whatever reason, you know, technically it's quite a nice entry. If it starts moving down here and you think, well, it's going to take these out. If you've got on that, for me, I'd probably say as soon as it broke the low of the day, I'd be quite happy with that. When I've got nothing else to really say you should stay in this, yeah, I'm not getting those extra 50 ticks there, just because there's no real reason for it. I'd be very happy to get through the low of the day, to be honest. You'd be somewhat surprised to have done that. I think the only reason you get through the low of the day is it just didn't really stick anywhere else on the way down. It's just tick, 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 tick. So you end up in a situation where you're in, it keeps going, and you're like, well, I might as well pick myself a target, call it 68, 90 and be done with it.
You'd be happy with that.
Well, yeah, you'd be happy with it. Certainly for a market that, yeah, wasn't doing a great deal. Yeah, this is one of those as well where some people will have got lucky, because I'd be looking at that and thinking, technically, if this breaks that little trend, I'd quite fancy a sell, but I'd be thinking there. And then you get short on the break of trend and it goes tick, 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 accelerate, accelerate, and you think, well, let's see if it goes through there. Oh, it does. Let's see if it goes through 20. Oh, it does. Let's see if it goes through 90. It does. Get out. You know, you really run out of reasons to stay in after that point. Yeah, the first ones you might just see what happens because it's changed the way it's trading, but that's about it. But at the moment, it is still very much stuck oil. Still doesn't really want to do anything on this. There you go. Worth a replay on that. Worth a replay to have a go at, well, 2 things. 1, try and play the reverse. Obviously, you know the level that it reverses from, but try and find a point where you can sort of say, right, well, once it gets past this point, then I want in, rather than just, you know, putting a bid at 50, because yeah, you'll get filled the low. You're not going to do that in reality. So what you're trying to do with a replay is learn what happens to give you that sense that, yeah, now it is actually going to start to turn. The other thing as well is just to go and look at, you know, get in or don't get in and ask yourself, can you get in on the break of 30? So that way you're sort of practicing, like, what do you need to see when it reaches 30 to get yourself to hit it? And then again, on the break of this area here, so that's 20, and then on the break of 90, what are you looking for the breaks? You know that it's going to break, but how does it do it? What does it do when it gets to these points? So go and have a replay of that. Oh, sorry, I've got one question before that. Got completely burnt, misunderstanding or overweight in the news for a few decent trades, but overall picture was wrong. Kept thinking, okay, it's up, but it can't go that much further with news on escalation. To be fair, I got sucked into that trap. Yeah, and I remember I said at some point in the morning or some point around here, possibly, I can't remember where, this is one of those days where you don't want to get trapped trying to buy it on the way down. So I don't think it's entirely wrong to sort of think that. Would have done better if I'd just done it technically and been open and unbiased. How did news contribute to the rally? Is there really much to be gained rather than looking at it primarily technical terms? I don't think you can say that news contributed to this in any way, apart from the fact that the absence of anything more was enough to allow people to buy it. Yes, I do agree that sometimes if you look at things purely technically, forget everything that's gone on and go, well, where do I want to buy or sell this? It can often sort of get you through some of the news. I think it's about being clear on what you're trying to do. So when you opened here, yeah, the S&P set you up quite nicely. It sits in that little range as this one little dip lower. You could look at that and go, well, yes, there is some news out there. You're not trying to buy the low now. You're not trying to buy the dip. What you're trying to do here is play a breakout towards the upside. I think it's probably a day that you get potentially less than you could, in the sense that, yeah, there is always that news element out there. You possibly play the break here and get out there. Those types of ideas, or maybe up at 15 where this sort of second leg down comes from. It may be that you don't get as much out of it as perhaps you would have if you didn't think or didn't know any news was there. Equally, I think there's probably a fair risk that you'd sell that for the breakdown, that this is a pullback at the open and then you're going to go once more. I'd certainly be leaning in that direction at the open. It's easy in hindsight to say, well, of course, it's a big overnight sell-off. You should have just bought the break of that range. But I'd find it hard to say that I wouldn't have sold the break there towards the downside. So I think if you've got a few decent trades out of it, I don't think you should look at that entirely bad. Yeah, yes, maybe if you've constantly overweighted news and constantly kind of looked at it and gone, oh, but this news might turn it, it might turn it, it might turn it. At the end of the day, once it started going towards the upside, it's kind of told you what it wants to do. So sort of lean towards that. But I can't go against somebody for sort of keeping that idea of that news there, because it was, you know, particularly personally, there was always that possibility that this keeps on going towards the downside. So yeah, I wouldn't be too critical of yourself for that, to be honest. Okay. A few people have sent a few different ideas in. It's not quite the open, so we'll go and see where these are. Oil is now starting to tick back inside that overnight range. So it's starting to look a little bit more like a market that might just rotate down from here. Yeah, top of value, possibly, if it's going to bounce that 69.40 area. Yes, that's possibly your last chance. Okay, so this was Jason's one, which to be fair was posted very early, so may not entirely all still fit. Okay, so open down into today's value area, fill in more of value, but watch for a break of the IB to the upside. Yep, depends on where the IB is. But yeah, basically looking for it to drop down into here, I'm assuming. If trending up and already in position, break the IB high, hold for the gap fill. Yep, on break of Tuesday's high. Yeah, absolutely, I think that's fine to go and play for that move. So no problem with that. Open above today's high, watch for a retest of today's high and open test drive for a gap fill. So basically open test drive. Yep, fine. Downside break of today's value area to the downside, watch for filling in volume gaps to 93. Yep, I think that's fine that you got that. I think I did this for a while and started doing my prep the night before. So I'd get it all done and I'd have various different ideas. And what I ended up finding was, this is quite contingent on certain things happening, whether it opens inside value, outside value, what it does from the IB, etc., etc., etc. What you can end up doing is kind of spending a fair bit of time coming up with an idea, coming up with contingencies and plans, only for none of them to be useful the next day. That's the bit where I'm not entirely convinced, or I don't see a huge amount of value in doing too much prep the day before. Just to save you that sort of risk. Sorry, I was just seeing if there was any news behind that. There seems to be quite a bit of downside movement all of a sudden.
Well, the chief says Israel should not be allowed to breach Lebanon's sovereignty to enter and kill as it pleases.
Sorry?
I think it's all or nothing. I mean, It has more chip speed and maybe there's some sort of reaction. No matter what it's
Oh, my news feed's decided it's going to die. Yeah, potentially if we get something there. But yeah, you're not seeing many people going for this. Yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. But it had, what is quite helpfully done is just taking the S&P straight down to that 50-33 area. It's just up and down the range at the moment.
Last night when I was sitting up RT, there was a lot of volume absorbed on the offer at 30.
Okay.
A lot of volume.
What, a seller? Someone?
Buyers, he was on the offer, just absorbing.
Yeah, so someone's reloading their offer.
Magnet, today,
I wouldn't think so because you're above it, but I would see that then, and that's useful because then if you've seen that from 30 yesterday, then as long as you're above that, anybody who was selling with them is in trouble. What?
You didn't get a selling reaction from it. Right?
No, so what I'd be looking for now is any movement back to 30, unless it can get through there, you're unlikely to find a great deal of selling. So yeah, then it just, what it helps you with is, because I got the level at say 33, 34, what it helps you with is if it goes down there and then trades 31, you don't sort of think, oh no, it's broken the level. Because I'd see as 30 as like now the level that you need to be aware of, more so than necessarily 33, 34. Or at least provides a little bit of additional support. I also got a variation of this on NASDAQ. I tried to draw the trade ideas on this one. So one, open above value area high, which is basically opening above the high. Buy it if it moves down, scaling 3 at value area high. So this would be a case of open, buy it there, add, or open, just buy it, buy 2, buy 3, and then stop down here. One thing I would say on this, I'd hope they're micros because that could be a huge stop if you're buying 2 NASDAQs for a, well, who knows, well, it's at least a 60 tick stop, put it that way, which on 2 lots is quite a lot. It's 2.5 grand. So it's a hefty stop. You just got to consider that. Yeah, as a swing trade, fair enough, maybe that works, but you've got to always sort of think, from a day trade perspective. I would say, I know you sent this, I'd be slightly disinclined to go towards NASDAQ. I know it's always tempting, but I'd be slightly disinclined towards NASDAQ on this. But the basic idea is, if it opens here, then you're playing, for that and the gap fill. If it opens inside value, then you're playing that as long as it doesn't come down here, then dip and play it for the gap fill. If it opens inside value, then you can play the up. If it breaks this sort of upper VPOC, which I'm not entirely seeing here, I'm assuming you might be looking at a full session chart, then the idea is to sell it down through the range a little bit. I'm not a big fan of that trade. I think you're selling it here for a bit of a dip to there. Yeah, I think there might be a little bit of movement in it, but I'm not entirely convinced there's too much in that. And then at 62.12 to 580, so that's here to here, is a chance for a buy. Again, I can see it on the profile. It's far better trade on the profile that you're buying from the single prints down there for a bounce back. And then if you break 55, which I think is sort of the cash low, that's going to be the cash session low, then you're playing for the bigger move down. All possible, I think. But my only caution would be the size of stops on that, or the size that you're trading. Probably be leaning that more towards a, more towards a micro type of trade on that one. Oops. Right, I got another couple. I know Pete sent one in of. So that's where we are on S&P. I know there was an explainer of this as well. Okay. So number one, open drive higher. So play for the gap sort of 86 and onwards.
Yeah.
Sweet. Open drive takes us outside of the previous day's range. First pullback, so you're looking for it to basically hold above 55 and then off we go.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's pretty fair.
And then we've got those single prints above, which will act as support if we do get above it to then pull back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fair. Open test drive to Monday's high. Monday's high 59
Let's
days.
open test drive lower first before finding responsive buying on 2 levels.
Oh, yeah, and then up from there. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm a little bit cautious if it goes through 34, the ability to actually go up in a significant way. I think if you get below 34, you run the risk of it sort of getting trapped down here. But that's my view on it.
Is that CO coverage or it's?
Yeah, that's the chart.
Yeah, there you go. So long off 34, long off 24 to 19. Yeah, I'd kind of view that as that's your kind of what I would call your last chance.
Yeah, 90%.
Yeah.
If that fails, then sellers are in control of the market.
Yeah, that would be my sort of take on that. And then previous day high and fail, rolling over to 59.87.
So just as a scenario, if sellers are in control, we don't get above, we try for the overnight high, we fail. I'm not going to try and sell that, but if we do get a response off it, and we see it start to reject hard off the overnight high, then I'll look for a setup off the back of that using market structures to develop price action to develop start
To go for the move down.
It's got to see aggression, it's got to see confidence in other markets for me to see that move is on.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, once you've got that initial bit of movement, then we know where we are. Oh, this is well, we're off. I'll bring the two of them in. That's your S&P and your NASDAQ. Tricky moment in NASDAQ here because the play on the upside has a stop here and the play on the downside is selling 40. So question now of which one do you do there. The S&Ps, I didn't see which way it went straight off the open. But at the moment, you sort of not quite traded 33 area. We're obviously not trading up yet either. So it's definitely a bit of wait for this to form and see where we get to. Oil still doesn't want to do anything at all. It's totally died. It's as if everyone just went home yesterday and hasn't come back.
Yeah, it looks like it's holding for technically it looks like a rising wedge can break to the upside, but
What?
just wait for inventories. Then again with the CX.
What's that, oil?
Yeah. I mean, I'm only working with 30-minute chart, but no fucking profile is really.
Yeah, I think I always take something like that if it really isn't doing anything, I wouldn't try and read too much into it or try and gauge too much of what's going on. I'd kind of look at it and just go, well, it's not currently doing anything, so I don't want to jump to too many conclusions. Yeah, the places that it can go are still there. They're still all in play. Yeah, it can still go and break the high, which is getting through that gap. It can still come down to 40. So until it does either of those, I don't think you draw too many conclusions. What it does suggest is the longer it sits around here doing very, very little, the more and more you look at it thinking, well, I'm probably not going to get a chance to do too much on this.
Like inventories or something.
Yeah, it's just a case of wait on it at the moment. That is all I would read from that. NASDAQ, if anything, it's open. You could argue that this is sort of an open test drive, or sorry, an open drive towards the downside. An S&P at the minute, a bit of a kind of open auction. You're getting towards that overnight low. So this is exactly that point now where dependent upon how bold you want to be about this, and this is where you have to, a personal kind of choice as to how you want to play these types of things. You could go real bold and just go, well, I'm buying the S&P 34s, that's my level, I'm having it. As long as you can sort of manage a stop on that, then you're probably okay. It's probably slightly lower than that. I think it is probably 33. So you've got that, you could just go for that there, or another alternative to that is, well, you wait for it to sort of fail to keep going and play it back up. And the other way is you play it through what is now, I would view that as your kind of opening range now. Not quite fully established the low of the open range, but you seem to have established the high. So the other way to do it is if you want to play this up, you play it through here. So it's all down to really sort of how significant or how keen are you to just get long here. NASDAQ's breaking through those areas that that were suggested before. So I'm hoping, Darius, that you're short on this one in the NASDAQ. And there's your 30s, Joe.
We got it?
Yeah, there you go. It's just done 300 there and it doesn't go through. There you go. It's gone through now, it's holding. And you see it's not letting it bounce up there very easily at all. Straight back on the offer here. Oops. So you could look at that and go, well, you could then, if you're looking for the sell, this could be your attempt to then go for that sort of move down towards sort of 15. Possibly you're coming down into that kind of tricky area.
So the everyone that was buying at 30s getting washed out now.
Yeah, because people came in, but when it went off at 30, you did see they reloaded 30. And then they've reloaded 29. You see there, the volume keeps ticking up at 29.5. So it seems that there's a bit of an effort to keep this move going towards the downside, or certainly a willingness of people to sell here. So then you just got to go back to, okay, well, what was your plan on the downside in terms of where this can get to? Because if you're still in the boat of, well, I think this is probably a buy, you're right down now onto the areas where it could well be a buy. You've got the 20, you've got the 15. But you've definitely got a fair bit of pace in that as it started to go towards the downside. There's not really much let up in this at the moment.
Could get 13 again, though.
Well, yeah, I think you've got to start thinking that that's a possibility. This then comes down to partly your own bias as to where you really thought this was going to go to. If you were very much more biased towards the upside, you might be a little bit more keen to get out. Personally, I wasn't convinced this would come off a great deal today. You've just taken out 400 lot sitting at the low, but that would be a reason for me to think maybe I'd take that. I'm still thinking about that sort of 15 area or the couple of bottoms of value, and the idea of this sort of wash down on the open and people then bid it back up trade. I'm not saying news to indicate otherwise. So then we're down into this. Yeah, I think you've got 2 points left. If it's gonna bounce, you've got your last chance at 15, and then the bottoms of value. That's your sort of real last chance. But at least we've got a bit of action. They've started to move, and there's your 89s for Darius on that one. So like I said, this is now the point where he's got to make a decision about whether he's going to stay in it or not. Go for it.
Do you think that we could come down to 25.88?
$588.
Yeah.
We could fill in that low volume on the profile yesterday on the things between 06 and 94. That was a level to seen last night, 94 or something.
588, so just inside the IB bottom of value from the previous day.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible. Yeah, you're falling inside a value. It looks like a move that's trying to go through value essentially.
Yeah. Or I mean, do you think it would break lower and take the lows?
Not from this point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I think it's probably asking a bit much. It's going to have to come off, stall out, and then do something, and then you could sort of think that's possible.
Yeah.
Basically, you're at the moment on a very large, very straight line initial balance. I'd be looking at that thinking I need to see what it does out of the initial balance for it to do a much, much bigger move. You look at where's the Nasdaq one gone? You look at your profile there and you think, well, you've already done, it's not tiny, it's not massive, but it's as big as yesterday's already, and this is what, 10 minutes in? So it's already done quite a lot, very, very straight line at this point in time. So yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to sort of think it can get down at least towards these single prints bottom of value relatively quick. Whether it can sustain that on the back of such a quick drop, you'd think it's at least got to have a bounce, it's at least got to show something, some sort of consolidation and willingness to keep going for it to go for the lows. I don't think it's out of the question, but not without a bit of time here. I haven't seen any reason to think that this needs to go straight for the lows at this point in time.
No. But I mean, 588 previous initial balance.
Yeah, I've got it as 603 or 606. From my point of it. Yeah, at the moment, even if you like the 15, struggling to. It's a tough buy.
It's a frame trade, isn't it?
Yeah. The thing you've got in your favour, if you like the idea of 15, if you're playing on this idea of the S&P doing that kind of straight line down early move and reverse, it has stalled a bit. It started to build some volume. If it can jump through 17, then that perhaps is your way of playing it. So it's always about sort of thinking, how are you actually going to go for this as a trade? Unless you are just going to go, it's 15, buy it. But there's really nothing at the moment that's making you think that this is stopping, apart from the age-old, well, surely it can't keep going, which is not what you want to be doing. This where, you know, if this bounces straight line from here, you might think, why didn't I buy 15? But if you buy 15 and this doesn't, it looks like a really bad idea of a trade. So you got to kind of give yourself a bit of structure. NASDAQ, if it bounces off the single prints or gets down here, the NASDAQ's now getting to a point as well where it could bounce. That's the other thing you always want. You want something, some sort of confluence to this. You know, it's moved the VPOC down in the S&P already down to here. So you're starting to get to a point where you think maybe there's a chance of some kind of sort of bounce in this, just on the basis of where you've got to in each of them. The fact the S&P's just not continued to push down. So if you are going to get some kind of bounce, it's starting to get the feel that it's got that possibly in it. And then this comes back down to that question that I talked about before of, if you think that this is the last chance for the buyers, well, that implies this is probably the low of the day. In which case, if you are going to go for this, you go for it with the view that this is going all the way back up. I think this for me is the area now, this sort of 19 to 17. If this can zip up through here, I think you could play that up from that point, rather than necessarily trying to buy it all the way down here. Because at the moment, this is that that standard sort of balance between people trying to buy the dip, which is why it's no longer going down, and people trying to sell the pullback for the next leg. So there you go. I want to see it nice and quick through here. Nice and quick through there. Get up to 19s again, and then you could potentially get this chance to buy it, particularly if the NASDAQ holds up.
Just be careful at 24 though.
24.
Just a low volume on the profile.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You don't want to see this filling in. So this is one where if you try and play this from here, you want to see this go up quite quick. The more time it spends here filling this in, the more acceptance, the more that this starts to look like a market that can go down. So this is one where you want to see this start to reverse quick. You know, coming off like that again gets you thinking, no, that's not the one. But it's fine. It's fine to take that. Like, this is the first trade of the day. You can't, or second trade. We had that first one, which was the sort of opportunistic sell-off. It's put in the smallest of pullbacks possible and starting to go again.
That trade gave you a lot of information and stuff, but be ready for the next one.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you don't have to get sucked into, you know, to taking on too much here. You know, there's still a long time left in the day, and this is always a temptation to sort of think, oh no, I'm missing it all. Like, I've got to get involved. You know, I've got to do something.
Could make $1 million in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're not going to do that. Yeah, if your view was more towards the downside, or your view was very kind of, I don't care which, but below 33 I'm selling it and above 55 I'm buying it, then you know, you probably would have captured a fair bit of this. You know, 33 to 15 was the first idea that we had towards the downside. A question from Grimy. What do you consider more important in the morning? Open IB formation in the 1 minute or the MP reference? I think you mean what's more important, the opening range trade or the look of the initial balance, I think is the question there. I think if you've got an idea of a trade early on, that opening range is really, really valuable. If you, there we go, you're starting to see a little bit more bounce in this now. If there's no real sort of clear directional sort of idea or play, then I want to see the initial balance form. Ultimately, the initial balance is still going to be key to what more this is going to do on the day. So it depends where you want to trade, right? If you want to be participating in these first moves, then the important bit is that opening range and what it does in those first few minutes and then before the break. If you don't have a particularly clear view of anything that's going to go on in the first hour, then I'd wait for that initial balance to form, wait for it to form to work out where it really wants to go. Equally, if it doesn't seem to have any energy in it at all, then same principle, a bit like oil, it's just died, it's got no energy in it. So if you wait for the IB to form, yeah, that's going to take another 10 minutes. that might be the bit that gives you that impetus. At the end of the day, this is not a particularly big initial balance in oil now. So we do have some scope for the break of the initial balance, whilst it feels very, very dead, to be the thing that initiates the next bit of movement. What it's basically telling you is the standard sort of profile-based theory. This is a market where people haven't made their minds up yet, so there's still scope for them to do so and still scope for them to move. These two seem to be markets where either people have made their mind up or they had a lot of business they needed to get done and they've gone for it. So what that does suggest is, well, you're perhaps running out of people who either haven't made their mind up or people who still got a great deal of business to do. So it limits the potential continuation of a lot of this type of movement. So as the day goes by, you can start sort of moving around where you think the opportunities lie. And then it's also still a case of taking on the information. Like, if oil doesn't pick up anything on the break of the IB now, I'd be very much of the view that it's just a day that it doesn't want to do anything.
It just puts you off a trading full stop.
Yeah.
It's got no lackluster.
You kind of look at it and think, well, one thing that a market can do is just repeat yesterday. And yesterday was ultimately just an up, and take away that one crazy move. Yesterday was just essentially a drift up, chop, 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 drop, chop, 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 chop. If it doesn't change, there's no reason to assume that it has to be anything other than that again. So there's still holding 15 ultimately. And this is again where you should sort of take a step back after a little while from, if you've been watching it sort of very detailed, very intense, just take a step back, fall back to your plan and ask yourself, right, has anything massively changed? Because as much as this all seemed very, very exciting, very quick, lots of movement, we've not broken 15 yet. We've had a bit of a quick drop, yes, but nothing's really changed that much. It probably leans you more towards the idea, or the initial idea, that we're going to kind of balance inside of value more so than have that move up. And I think the longer you sit here, the more and more you start to think that this isn't going to be going up. You're very much back inside of value now. Any bounce come back towards 23. Back towards 23, you're starting to build more and more value down here. It looks quite weak, but it's, this is the thing of a market that looks weak, but from what you've done on your prep so far and your initial plan, how much further can this really go? And I think that's the sticking point at this point in time, and where I would be much more keen to just sort of step back a bit now. And you've seen the initial action. Step back and we sort of wait for the next bit of the move. And if you're not sure what the next move is, don't have to do anything.
Buy and sell.
Huh?
Buy and sell.
I wouldn't be wanting to do that. At the end of the day, this is just, it's chopping around in a bit of a range down here. This is always the difficulty with scalping. It sounds really easy. So I will buy it down every time it goes 15, get out when it gets to 20 and reverse it. That looks really easy now, but you just saw it when it first went to 15. That was a very brave trade to buy that. And I think also if you are buying that, catching the falling knife, you're not getting out of 20. That seems a bit risky. That's an interesting new feature though. That on the way down, you saw a couple of these bigger, that wasn't real either. I saw one of the other ones pulled as well, but you saw some of them and they were always at the lows. Now they've moved it up a bit.
On the front, no one's willing to sell below 15.
No, you could see that on the ladder. There's just nothing down here. So that there isn't too much willing to send it down when it gets down there. And this really short term, what you're forming is this kind of fat bottom where people sell it down there and then they don't get anything more.
Then they sweep it up to get liquidity and then they bring it back down.
Well, the people who sell it down here, some of them give it up. And as it comes up, then the other people who are like, well, just wait for the pull back and sell it, they can sell. There you go, now you've got 1,000 on the bid.
It's a bit suspect, isn't it? It's on the bottom of the book. Very much, right? But
it just flashed to 600, then flashed off.
That could be because it's just not showing it there though. But the fact that the other one pulled, it does seem a little bit suspect here.
Why is he showing up on mine? He's showing up at 15s on mine.
Yeah, it's 15 here. I'd really want to see that trade, or want to see what it does when it gets there. 'Cause if that holds, that's your clue now to have a go at buying 15. That's the kind of thing. So I think Darius asked, like, what are you looking for on a ladder? You can't plan for that, but this is a prime sort of example of, this is going to help you find out whether people want to buy it here. If that holds, gets filled, reloads, whatever, and it doesn't go down, that's a pretty decent sign. If it comes down there and it just wipes straight through him, then you start being, okay, there's the next leg. So that could be your trigger for the next move.
But don't forget that level, just remember there was someone buying it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice, easy one to remember because it's the level that seems to have been quite reactive for,
It's a rare number too. So.
well, 15's hardly round.
I mean, like, it hasn't got a forward point.
In the trading, I think.
That
Yeah,
trade?
it was 8,000 on the total volume before it got there, I think.
Oh, right.
I think.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure. Right, well, there you go. Straight through. Same time, Nasdaq's gone as well. Has Nasdaq broken the low? No, Nasdaq's not broken the low yet. So we want to see what they do when it comes back, whether they come and put it back on the bid there. Yeah, I think you're right, yeah, because it was like 4 and a bit thousand. And you'd probably be able to see it if you're looking at the footprint, Joey.
Yeah, he's taken the whole thing.
Yeah, it got filled.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Volume different to yours
I don't know.
on the profile, but 10,000 is the POC of 15s. You've got 5,000.
You got 10. Have you got 10,360 something? Yeah, it seems to be doubling.
Oh, it's just doubling, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know why it's doubling it though. Well, there we go. Yeah, this is the big. You'd expect this to push now, to go towards the downside.
You sure?
Yeah.
Always short.
Clean up? Good.
Are you going to be someone who's long once the Nasdaq's come off about 2006?
No, I'm short. I was
No, I mean just generally looking for longs.
Okay.
Like, always selling on the way up and always buying on the way down. It doesn't want to get away from here. It's the same in the Nasdaq. Two of them the same. They don't seem to want to get away from here. So you're starting to form a bit of range now. This increasingly looks like a bad low. Kind of wearing everyone's patience down, I think. This bit, I don't think this means it's going up, and this is where it's easy to get stuck into your own bias. The longer it sits here and doesn't go down, the more and more potential for a quick reversal of it. You know, you start breaking through that moving average, people are going to start getting a bit worried if they've been short down here for a while. And there you go, you just tried the lows in Nasdaq and it didn't go. You tried to low in the S&P and it doesn't go. Now they're trying to hold the offer. Right. Right. Okay, so Darius is now looking for a bounce based on 5-minute footprint, and we're on a pivot point. So he's going to put a stop lower down. He's not doing a good job of going down at this point, but the delta does continue to go down. This is one where you are waiting now for the next sort of kick somewhere. Much more wait and see. And you're nearly on the turn of the hour as well, so it's then a case of oil to see what that can do on the turn of the hour before we then get to the inventories. There you go, S&P's now done bottom of value as well, nearly. So yeah, it certainly surprised me in terms of direction. I didn't think we'd come off this far. Yeah, you're down towards that sort of 7 to 10 area. Like I said, I think that's very, very last chance. That's still going, so you might get your 588s on this.
Maybe.
Is it your
I
phone?
might also get up in case.
Emmanuel will be smoking a cigar.
Yeah, very pleased with himself on this one. Yeah, it does, keeps on going, doesn't it?
The end of the single print is 605. I checked
605.
Market profile.
Okay.
It's like the last single print from the previous day.
Yeah, so you got that. You now got the S&P on the bottom of the value. Very interesting. You often see that literally turn of the hour and it starts to bounce. Not far though. And you got the oil just gone for the, no, oil's still not breaking the IB. I'd increasingly think now, there you go, it's starting to get a little bit of pace. I'd increasingly think now with oil even if it does start to put in a little bit of a move down, the just complete lack of anything would lead me more to think that this is probably a buy. Just because it doesn't look like it's got the energy to do anything. So I think 36 is the chance. S&P on the turn of the hour, literally a turn of hour, and it's straight up. And you're straight back towards 15 now. And oil's come off 36. Seems pretty extreme bounce there.
So it's permanently done?
To be honest, that's
Well-
respecting the IB of the previous state.
Yeah.
Hasn't been able to break
Yeah, it's
through.
that IB, the single prints, all of that part of it. And it's come back, it's held basically the low of that little range. This is that, it's just giving that little touch of pullback. The S&P lows were what, 13s previously? So I'd be thinking it's got to get above 30, stay above 13, and if you're thinking there is any chance that this is that wash down IB and reverse, that's it.
What was that on the daily? That was the
13 and 15 was sort of a key level multiple times. It was a previous high before it had the little breakout. But there you go, it's had that one test back and it's just back onto the selling. So if you had the view that this was going down, yeah, there's nothing that's really changed that.
I guess you want to see the velocity slow right down to kind of indicate, sellers are done, then we can continue the trend if that's just one idea.
Sorry, so what's the idea?
You want to see the velocity die right down, so the sellers are done and the buyers can step back in and continue the long-term trend? Or?
Well, yeah, if it's going to put in any kind of reversal, I think for a reversal, really, you need to see the buyers send it up quite quickly. Yeah, the longer and longer they take about this, the more. And this way, you go back to your sort of initial ideas that if this doesn't reverse very quick, you're going to be soon looking at a very clear initial balance, probably some sort of balancing type profile. There's always sort of a good way to do it. So every hour or so, just take a little step back and ask yourself, right, well, where are we and what's changed? The longer this sits here, the more and more this looks like a market that's probably going to spend the rest of the day filling this area out. It's put in a big initial balance. It doesn't seem to want to bounce off the low, but equally now it's down here, it's not driving and driving and driving down. So you're starting already, and this is why you sort of generate some hypotheses and ideas of what's going on, that each minute that goes by, you're getting more and more and more evidence to make you think this is probably leaning towards what I would call a normal day. It's going to get down here. Over the course of the day, you might see some extension down to here, so that 58.95. Because the size of the initial balance, I think that's probably a good buy now. In that I can't see it just doubling this move towards the downside.
On the balance day, you want to sell any extension higher and buy any extension lower, kind of?
Yeah, well, I'd be disinclined to buy too quickly because at the moment it doesn't seem to bounce. But once it has put in some bounce, if it can't get back above this sort of 2023 area and show some impetus up there, I think it's then a market that then just rotates this area out. So if you always kind of fall back to that, then you've got yourself in a position where you go, right, well,
Early, yeah, it's only half an hour.
yeah, there you go, there's this, 7's gone. As well, it's,
Keep an eye on that 94. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened last night, but I was setting up RT and it did catch my eye. Or was that yesterday afternoon?
well, that's the 94, that's the point I was just talking about. Is anyone short this?
No.
No. It's a pretty impressive move.
I feel like
What is that?
very
Nasdaq.
methodical. I could have everything set up so I could participate now.
Yeah, it's done it. I'm still not seeing any news behind this at the minute. I don't think there's any news. I think it's just a straight line sell-off, which
That might have been the exhaustion.
it just completely negates that whole move up yesterday. Which is, one of the things you can have that with a liquidation, that you get the liquidation back. And oil still doesn't want to do too much. I think you're onto that 35 area. This is the chance for it to hold and then reverse away from it. Otherwise, you're you've got the potential for it to sort of wind down the range and sort of wind through yesterday's profile. So you're looking at 10.
Yeah. Got them lows at 18.
What it has done, it's done a lot of volume here.
But you got point of control at 21, 20, 22.
Yeah, but it's not going to do much more volume here for that to move down. You might get that bounce now, the S&P. If it doesn't bounce from there.
You traded 9K on that loss.
This is always the problem though. If you do look at this from the perspective of there's a potential buy, you then end up in a point you can't sell this now.
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. Like if you're not short and you haven't sold it, you have to be okay to go. I have no real reason.
I was almost convinced it was going up today, and that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Too much of a bias, maybe.
No, I completely agree as well. I was very much of that view that the break at 33, it's going to bounce off 15.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you get too sucked into it, then you have to accept you're going to miss some of these things. The flip of that, you always have to remember that there's going to be a day where if this had gone up, your willingness to buy 55 for the break and stay in that, if it had done this move up, you'd capture the whole lot of it. So equally, I'm probably sure there's someone who was quite keen on the downside. I'm assuming Darius, quite keen on the downside, got that, and it's done it. Or Emmanuel, who's always keen on the downside. It's always going down. Yeah. And there you go, there's the oil back above that area of volume. So I think, if you've got anything, you possibly got something in oil here. I'd be of the view now, I still think this is worth a buy. I think it's probably a short time frame one, as in don't get sucked into buying 94 thinking there's going to be anything gigantic, but unless this absolutely zips through 94, you've got a bigger order there. I think you could get at least a bit of a bounce towards, possibly even 08. I think you're going to get some relief at some point in this.
Why is Jigsaw showing it at 5915 on the chart?
I don't know, mate. Because it's not keeping up. I'm chasing it down now. Wow. This was the point it broke away from yesterday. This is that area that the buyers seem to have the greatest amount of strength, so you would assume they've got something more to show for it. And just the distance we've come so far, you would think there's got to be some kind of bounce in this. Well, I would think that, at least. It doesn't look like it. No, it doesn't want to do it. Well, I think we're kind of left here now.
That's enough of that now.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, that's it. I think we're very much left now with.
It's not buying gold.
Well, this is the thing. Like nothing else. Gold's creeping up, but gold's hardly breaking highs.
Dollar's not doing much either. Treasury's not doing anything.
No, this is just purely a selling equities move. And I think this is one that you can't explain. You can't sort of go, oh, it's because of this, because of this, because of this. It's not because of any of those things, because nothing else is moving on it. So I think you have to look at that and go, it's because people want to sell treasury and sell equities for whatever reason.
Has Bruno mentioned something they're going to be involved in the political process? Is that maybe spooking Martins?
Who?
Hezbollah?
Don't see why. But again, if it was anything to do with that, don't try too hard to attribute news to something. So if it was anything to do with that, you'd expect oil to be moving, at least more so than many of these things, seeing as Hezbollah's backed by Iran. So 3,000 done now, 90 in the S&P there.
Someone, yeah.
You're seeing a big jump up in Delta. And that could be an attempt to create a bit of a low here. But yeah,
You sure, Rich?
no, I'm not now.
Well, someone was offering to.
There's definitely some willingness to try and buy that there.
You did get a change in the pace and like.
Okay, yeah, you've got a lot of willingness to buy at that point. Whether it's short-lived and all we get is a little tick up and that's it, who knows? But there's definite change there, and they absorb the delta's gone pinging up.
Maybe this is too much speculation, but it's like a split microsecond where the bids and everything flick, and you just feel it's like like a machine, like something's been turned on or something's been turned off. Like it's very subtle.
Yeah, that's something you get for experience. You see these things enough and you can just tell something looks slightly different about it. There's still got to be an element of something that looks slightly different and perhaps be a reason to buy. Something's then got to stay different when you get back to the next area of resistance. And unless that changes and it can push through 94, 95, this is nothing more than a quick bounce back up. So that's where you've then got to be clear on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to buy this because you think this is a low and we're going to get a more serious bounce, or are you trying to buy this for a quick scalp towards 94?
Might be rubbish, but
That's the sort of question that you got to ask yourself. Yeah, I think at the minute it is somewhat more reactive at the moment to what's been going on. So yeah, I think 94 is probably the place to go for here, unless you've got a really, really strong view. But I think it's really hard to have a particularly strong view that this is going
any extension lower you
up on the back of how far it's gone already. So you see if this holds again here, if they keep on buying, because that's going to be quite a lot. It goes there and they don't bother this time. It's gone straight through it, no interest, and then comes back and can't get back above
It's
that.
very weak, doesn't
It
it?
really does.
It could reverse.
Sorry?
It could reverse.
And it wouldn't surprise me if it absolutely roofs and finishes on the highs of the day either.
I'd be pretty surprised by that now.
yeah.
I think if that high's not in now, I'd be very, very surprised. Because it feels like it's the NASDAQ as much as anything. It keeps on kind of, they do keep buying at 90. There's definitely some degree of attempt to try and hold it at 90.
You don't think potentially it could be something to do with the earnings out tonight?
I don't know.
Someone's brother works there or something.
Oh yeah, there is that. But that's that whole problem of, it's a pretty easy one on insider trading. Like, oh, you suddenly out of nowhere sold so much S&P. It would seem a bit odd, particularly if they get it right. So it's just done another 1,000 at 90. So there's a battle going on here. And there it goes. So no, even when it looked like it was trying to get bought there, they keep on selling and selling and selling and selling for it. Oil's starting to drift now as well. Well, that below that 35. I think oil's very much still one that it's hard to see clearly what the direction is in that. It's got through 35, so you could look at it for the move through the range. The IB break, lots and lots of volume here. That's the beginning of the move through the range, possibly. So it's got something about it, but unlike these two, it's got nothing energy-wise to it. Unless you were just going to go, well, I'm going to sell with all of this volume here and try and play it down, but it's just creeping. So you're looking for you're playing that for the sweep through now, if you're playing that as a short. Yeah, the equities, I don't know. What I'll touch on for a minute, whilst they work out what they're trying to do, is oil for the inventories. It's always worth going back, just have a quick look at what it did last week. Should have been the 13th. Oh, the inventories were a day late because of Veterans Day last week, weren't they? So that was the inventory number, 70 to 18. So you're looking 40 ticks last week. If you go back, that'd be the 6th the week before. It's that one. So you've got a range of 90 to 50. So you're looking about a 40 tick range, but neither of them sustained movement, which is at the moment I feel quite common. So what that does help you with oil is a bit of a sense as to where we might get to on this one. And then you can use that to play for whatever it is that you're particularly looking for. If you're looking to sell, because at the end of the day, it is drifting lower, as much as it's doing it horrifically slowly, you could be looking at it and go, well, 40 ticks up, you're getting up to around the 50, 60 area. That's your chance to then go and have a go at a sell. On the downside, if you're looking for this, you could then play this for the sweep down the range and sort of that quite quick whiz down the range, 40 ticks down, and then that's sort of going to get you back down to, from profile, 40 ticks from here is going to get you down to around about the 80. It'll sort of finish off the sweep through the range, but it's not really going to go far enough to do too much. I'd definitely be now leaning more on the idea of if it can do up on the data, it's probably a decent sell at sort of the bottom of the IB to roll back down than it is to try and play a fade on a whip down. So we've got a bit of an opportunity at least on the oil data. Where were you wondering if Nasdaq could get to, Emmanuel? Through yesterday's low?
Yeah, through yesterday's low.
Wow. That's yesterday's low. So you still got another 130 handles to go. It'd be pretty significant if it does, I think, on the back of this whole recent sell-off.
I got out ages ago.
How did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to take any risks.
It'd be quite a move if it can, but yeah, at the minute, the way it goes down,
Yeah, it could actually.
yeah, it's starting to look a bit like this move, where you just kind of got that panicky, just run for the exits type scenario. Could start to look a bit like that. Right, I think, as much as I've been saying this all the way down, I think it's got to have some degree of pullback before it can, it can't keep going like this.
Is there no news that's come out? Anything?
Not that I can see. I've not seen any news.
Nothing else is reacting, though. Everything's dead. though.
And exactly, I think that's the big point, that nothing else is reacting. That you are now seeing bonds start to rally. The last,
Bonds have been rallying as well.
yeah,
Were you guys on it upstairs, Richard?
no,
Really?
no, not really. Certainly not on the equity sell-off. You had a couple of people trying to go long. Well, one guy's a long bund, one guy's been short oil for a little while. But outside of that, almost nobody's trading it. Which, yeah, again seems a bit of an odd one. As far as I can see, I haven't seen anything.
Aliens.
Sorry.
Aliens.
Aliens. There's no news to back that up or to explain that move. At least as far as I can see.
That's the
Maybe
beauty of it.
exhaustion.
People don't know.
Sorry.
Maybe because at the top, Nasdaq was respecting the previous range. Did not break above, and volume was going into exhaustion there. But I'm just asking, would that be a reason to create a move like this? No.
Doesn't feel like it. The general idea, like if you go up and it fails to keep going, a bit like we had over the biggest term on the S&P post the election, would make sense. But the scale of this move is close to the week-long consolidation on the election. Yet this is the end of a liquidation day and a balanced overnight. To have a liquidation of this size on the back of that seems a bit much. Like I said, I can't see anything in particular. No, Ford Motors cut 4,000 jobs in Europe. Yeah, that happened not long after the equity open, but still, I don't think there's enough in that.
Ford is only a subsidiary of General Motors, isn't it? Or is it a...
No, Ford's its own separate company. No,
GM's quite big in America.
I see nothing on that. Well, we've got the oil numbers in a minute, so we'll go and have a look at the oil numbers when they come out. Then we'll try and work out what more happens with the equities here. I think if anything, this kind of makes the Nvidia earnings a bit messy.
Yeah,
More
it's
so.
already done something.
Yeah, because it's already gone so far. Whatever that earnings is going to be hard to continue a move of this size, and equally hard to reverse a move of this size because people have already done it. So people are selling for some reason.
Interesting.
Could make Nvidia earnings a bit of a mess as well. So it's an unfortunate one. I wish I'd said definitely break 33, just sell it, it's going down. And it would look genius at the moment, but that wasn't my view. That's a good thing about doing some prep, because then you can look at the end of the day and ask yourself, well, what did you miss, or did you miss something in all of that, or in your prep that might have led you towards this as a move? For me, the one thing I would say is I think I was too keen on one idea and not willing to just go, that it's going to break 33. So as I said all along, 33 or 55 will decide what the next move is.
There's so many times where it's found,
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
And you have to look at those sometimes and go, well, if you just back to Darius's point, yeah, if you just stuck to the idea and went, it's a sell if it breaks 33 and worry about a buy later on, then you're okay. Okay. Right, Darius is now confident in a long, so he's going long Nasdaq now and looking for 640 to 680. So all the way back. Okay, Fraser, could you go for the adjustment on the oil figure? Yes. Let's do that before the oil figure comes out. We've got about 4 minutes. Okay, very quickly then. Right, that's the expectations, or sorry, that's the API data. Right, here we go. So, the API number came in with crude at minus 570, gas at plus 500 and distillate at minus 200. That's 1,000. So this shows it as 2.x million. So that was the previous. I've got an estimate of 4.75 for that crude number. What I would do, generally these are pretty solid now in terms of being in line. The crude inventory is the main one you're looking at anyway. So if I'm looking at 4.75 million, then that was a drawdown of minus 570. Let me see. Oh yeah, it's the API numbers. Sorry, there you go. Right, so that's 475. So I'm just trying to stay aware of the time. So that's coming at plus 475. So what I would then do is rate up the minus 500. Really, you're kind of pulling it pretty close to this now. So you've got a difference of what, 5.25 million. I'd probably see the main number now as about 4 to 4.5. So anything that comes between 4 and 4.5 million positive, I would see as a nothing. So it's got to come 5 million plus for me to think that that's now an increase in oil and a sell. It's going to have to, if it comes below 2.5 million, I would see that as a buy now. So the idea being less oil, restrict supply, bid up, more oil, more supply, offer. So that would be how I'd be trying to do it. I'm sure you could go back and you could actually check how accurately they get, and so to what degree you need to sort of adjust the number. The other thing with any kind of data is you've got to have a boundary as to what is out of line enough for you to do anything with. Oil numbers, I would see top end, I'd sort of go 10 million. You don't see many above 10 million very regularly, so that's a particularly high number. But also it's quite a volatile number, so I'd also be thinking I need to see it a fair way away from where you are.
Do you want to read it out loud for us, Richard?
Yeah, let's try and see if we can do this as it happens. It's coming out imminently, so you've got a minute to go. But if we're going on the basis of 40 ticks, you're trading 34, it might get you down towards the bottom of value, that kind of sweep of value trade. So there you go, there's the data. 545, so that's quite a big drawdown in my view. So I think that probably should be going up based on the API. It's much lower than the API number.
So more inventories and barrel, more supply, price goes down.
Yes, but that's a lot lower than the API number, which my view would be that should go up on that, and yet it still goes down. It's not a good day for me. In my view, yeah. That doesn't look like a market that really should be going down on that. I'm trying to see what I think is to read. You have got a huge build in gasoline compared to what was previously expected. So gasoline's done a pretty big build.
Could just be spirit things until it thickens up or something.
But yeah, there really isn't. Yeah, from those API numbers, I'm really not sure why this is going down in that way.
If the oil goes down, the dollar goes up to compensate, or?
No, oil's not going to impact the dollar. So yeah, that's done. What's the oil done on that now? done about the 40 ticks that it typically does on these types of things. That's what it's done on the profile. But it seems to be, you see how it's holding there? Hold 07, it held 15 on the data. So that's giving you this sort of little pocket of low volume. It reloaded 600 at 15 on the data, but it is doing the standard sort of action here. It does 40 ticks down and it starts to rotate back up. You know, they sold 600 on the data there and then back up it goes. So it's done one thing right, or seemingly. Doesn't seem to react very much to data now. This seems to be quite a common thing with the DOE inventories, where it does the whip one way and then it just drifts it back up as the day goes by. But yeah, the longer you go into this, and now oil does increasingly look more trendy than it has done. You know, you look at that now, and if you were coming in today and you looked at that from a profile perspective as to where you are now and said, what do you think it's going to look like at the end of the day? It's the whole point of going back to where you were. It's opened, filled the gap, traded down, small IB, single prints, built volume lower. It looks more like a trend day than anything else at the moment, oil. So, you know, to suggest that it breaks the low, I don't think it's out of the question at the minute. And you're now at a point with the equities where they have put the bounce in. Darius has absolutely nailed it. They put in an absolutely gigantic initial balance, gone all the way and tested that same 58.80s and have now bounced. What it does from here, it's still got to break the IB, and seeing as it is such a strong one to the downside, you seem to be, I'd be very surprised if it breaks the top side of the IB. So I'd be thinking you're going to have to break the low of that at some point today.
Where was that first one on the bid that they smashed? Was it
15.
Not 15, okay.
Go on, Peter.
I was going to say, best chance of maybe back to the middle of the range of the IB, but you know, it's a big ask. What's going to be the catalyst? If there was no buy, if the offer was so strong on the way down and the bid wasn't strong enough to hold it up, what's suddenly going to change for buyers to go, right now, let's try and send it to the moon?
Yeah, I think that. I think it's going to be really hard to go back up. So it's now really a case of, I'd be thinking for S&P and NASDAQ, I think it's going to break the low. Like, you have about a 99% probability of it breaking the low on the day. It's now just a case of, one, where's it going to bounce to before you get the chance to play it for the low? And two, how's it going to do it? It's, with these really large initial balances, it's typically going to go and break this in quite a sort of choppy way now, because now everyone's been shaken up. The people who want to be short, you would assume, are already short. The people who want to be long are going to be somewhat cautious about just buying this. So you end up with this quite sort of choppy action as it goes down. That's the way I'd sort of try and think about that one. So that's where we are. Always good to just go back to your planning. Yeah, once you've got past the first hour or so, just go back, take stock, work out where you are and work out where you think the next viable moves are, so that you don't get too trapped in making huge assumptions about what's going to be happening or jump into too many quick conclusions.
Like, I just bought the euro because the Brazilian president is signing some sort of shit with China, Belt Road Initiative.
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with Europe, so don't do that.
I
Right.
just thought, the BRICS, like the BRICS thing, like,
Nah.
yeah.
Yep. Right, I'll wrap it up there, guys. Hopefully that's been helpful for everybody. Hopefully it was an interesting session. At least we got somewhere from the prep, even if we didn't manage to make any money out of it. I'll leave you there, guys. We'll come back tomorrow, normal time tomorrow. We'll do debrief of the Fed tomorrow, so how I do a central bank debrief. So debrief the Fed tomorrow, and then it's Friday. So I'll explain more then. On Friday we'll do prep for next week. So I'll see you all tomorrow.
If anything, today's maybe.